Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to be talking about one of those things that people don't want to talk about, and that's taxes. But trust me, folks, you're going to be really glad to be listening to this program because we're not talking about paying more. We're talking about the potential for getting more. Whoa, what a concept. And we're going to be talking about a lot of other fun stuff too. So please join me in welcoming Doug Mayer to our program today. Welcome, Doug. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Thank you, Deb. Very excited to be here.
Great, great. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you. And it is a little bit, I was telling you before the show, oh my gosh, shortest bio I think I've ever been sent. But that's great because it gives us so much more time to chat. So Doug Mayer is the co-founder and CEO of Archetype Consulting Group, where he leads their growth strategy, operations, while strengthening the firm's strategic relationships with attorneys and tax professionals to benefit ACG's clients. We're also going to be talking about how Doug and his company have partnered with C-Suite Network to provide a great service. But again, Doug, welcome.
Thank you so much. I very much appreciate the intro. It's even shorter as I find people who are better than me and I hire them. That's probably the best way to describe it.
You know, and isn't that just the best way to be doing work? We've all seen the things that say, the great leader is the dumbest person in the room. And because, they should be, you should always be surrounding yourself with people who know more that you can learn from, all of those various things. So great.
And when you drop ego and you concentrate on what you're good at and you understand your boundaries, it makes for a very good working situation for everyone.
Right. And there's obviously, that person is the leader as opposed to the boss.
Yes, very much so.
Mm-hmm. Well, I always love finding out from my guests how they got to where they are today. So tell us how you discovered that, at least for right now, this is your passion in life.
This is definitely my passion in life, and I appreciate the question. Very non-traditional route for what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. So the earliest part of my career was working for a software company, which kind of led to my love of automation, my love of systems, and anything that's tech from an efficiency standpoint. Mm-hmm. By no means was I a programmer, by no means was I at that point somebody who understood project management. Mm-hmm. But it was more the fact that I knew that efficiency and being able to deal with things on a standardized, systemized basis was my path in life. Mm-hmm. I was working for a firm that did e-discovery. So basically we talked to general counsels and we talked to litigation experts, and we created a system that basically helped them out during the discovery process for document retention, right? So I loved the work. I loved how it was built. I'm a sales guy at heart. And so I was out on the road and I loved it. From there, though, there was something missing. It was sales, and I'm a builder. Right. I love to build things. I love new projects. I'm that person that definitely gets bored with idle hands. And so even though I did fantastic and I loved the people I met, I had to find something different. So I was approached by somebody into something I had no idea about, which was starting a recruiting company from scratch. And we were in the healthcare field dealing with physicians, executives, which kind of led me down the road. But it was a startup. We didn't even have a conference table, and it was dialing 400 times a day. And I said, you know what? It's the building, right? It's from scratch, ground floor. You're never going to have opportunities like this. And the person that ended up being my mentor had done it for 30 years, sold his business, moved on. And so I trusted that there was a blueprint to learn from, right? We did very well, got to 8 figures in about 5 years, had 40 employees. I was number 2 the whole time and got to learn everything. But the best part about it that led to my success going forward was I just said yes to everything. We need to build a new CRM. Who wants to sit on the phone and learn about custom fields for hours? That's me. We need to enter a new market. Who wants to try that? That's me. Right. And because I took ownership on the business and it meant a lot to me. And then from there, after about 5 years, we did fantastic, had multiple divisions. My wife and I were going to make a move down to Texas and for family reasons. So I was looking for something. There was another group that was had stalled. I've been around for about 15, 20 years in the recruiting industry as well, different specialties, different kind of executive CEOs too. And I came in and they needed somebody to kind of start that back up. So was there in about 2 years, doubled revenues, and had a whole new sales team underneath me, new markets. It was fantastic. But then you get to ceilings, right? And I'm the entrepreneur at heart. I'm that builder at heart. I will self-sabotage because I just believe in my own abilities that I have to do things that I care about and things that interest me, or I'm not my best self. So another 5 years there, did fantastic. We were well over 60 million in revenue as a company. And I said, I'm doing this on my own. It's the time. I had just had my first daughter, and my wife looked at me wide-eyed and said, "Now, really?"
Paycheck, benefits.
Oh yeah. And we just got through Hurricane Harvey, and I said, "Why not?"
Sure.
Right. So we started that executive recruiting. I've had that business to this day. It's not really as much as we do. We will do special requests every once in a while, but primarily focused in finance, family office, private equity, and tax. Right. So did that, was very successful at that, but it led me into this whole world of finance, and then crossed it over with the litigation side that I had from the past. And it was just love at first sight. And then I met my partner, Andrew, my business partner, who he is a finance genius. He's worked at litigation finance firms. He's worked at law firms. He's done complex financial modeling. He's a consultant for some of the largest institutions in the U.S. And we decided to start a litigation finance company right before COVID. And so that was another interesting turn. But hey, I'm the one that wants to always say yes and believe in yourself. And then we started that. We have that to this day, where we lend money to PI attorneys, to people in IP and patent litigation, to mass torts. But it's really for growth firms. It's just for, you have to have a strong track record, ethical. We always say that it's conscious capital, right? It's ethical capital to those who are doing good. That is who we lend to. And then that has led into Archetype Consulting, which is what our current primary baby love of our life has been, because it's allowed us to reach so many small business owners. And that is where we do some esoteric asset valuations for large firms, but really it's focused on the employee retention tax credit. And then we also do business interruption claims during COVID, so that we can help represent the small businesses that don't have the traditional access to a large firm for litigation, as well as complex tax structuring and attorneys that usually would cost her for a retainer. And my partner Andrew and I decided we're doing everything on contingency, because we're third generation small business owners on both of our sides. You need to give to those with the ideas, the drive, and motivation, and that's kind of our goal.
I love it. And that actually made me think about a conversation I had with somebody just a couple days ago about how many businesses were able to get through the last 2 years. There were PPEs, there were all sorts of things, but now what they're seeing are, things are back to normal, right? That's never happened. The people who say, I want it to be like January of 2020. Yeah, that's never going to happen, folks. Get over it. But this person was saying that what the businesses that he deals with are seeing is when all of those incentives were gone through, and so the companies were able to pay their bills. They were able to do those things. Now they don't have that. And so he thinks that the next 2 years are actually really going to be the struggle, where things are supposed to be normal, but they're not, because we got that boost, we got those incentives, and those have gone away, and so now people are having to figure out, wait a minute, now what world are we living in?
It was a false boost. And I say that not as an economist or anybody. I say
Right.
that as someone who on the daily is dealing with 20, 30, 40, 50 different small businesses that I haven't talked to before, and they're telling us their stories. It's, yes, the money came in, but it's supply chain issues,
Right.
especially in the hospitality industries. It's inflation. It's because of inflation, consumers are not buying certain products. It's a nice to have and not a need to have. And they don't know how to manage that.
Right.
And just like you said, PPP is gone, right? The Restaurant Revitalization Act is gone. The last time they put it up for a bill, it was rejected, and it wasn't added into the newest $1.2 trillion bill, as well as EIDL. And there's really nothing left. Right. And it's, you're on your own. Thanks for playing, and let's see how you do.
Yeah. Hey, that's great that you survived the pandemic.
Now we have a list of problems that you're going to have to figure out on your own. And that's where we come in. And, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in length, and no one wants to talk about taxes forever. But it's why we got into this, is because it truly was the last bastion of money that can help people out to get through this time.
Right. So let's go back and talk about that, because one of the things that your firm does, and you've partnered with C-Suite Network to provide this service, is information and how to work through the process for like any government thing, it has an acronym, but it's the Employee Retention Tax Credit, which I'm sure most people who are listening to this or watching this, they just went, ugh. So tell us what it is, and more importantly, tell us about why it's so important.
Yeah. So to not bore anybody, trust me, I'm not a tax person, so I'm just like you. My partner is our tax attorney, and I'm the builder. So in short, it's a payroll tax credit. And to start off, people need to understand is that it is not a loan. It is not something that you have to worry about paying back or certain fees. It's cash that you earned, and I tell people this all the time. Business owners are the ones that suffered during the pandemic, but you are the ones that ended up trying to keep everybody on payroll that you could. This is your reward, right? This is cash to you that has nothing to do with, earmarked for certain things. Is that you are entitled to this money and you need to get it. But the actual gist of the program was, it came out during the CARES Act, same thing as PPP, but there's a lot of confusion around it because it was such a small piece of it, and that it started out with $5,000 per employee per year, but you couldn't take PPP and this, and you couldn't mix programs.
Yeah. And so people went,
yeah. And like we talk about, is no one reads the fine print, right? And it's tax, IRS, scary. I'm not going to talk to them, right?
And people are like, I don't want to apply for it because I don't ever want them to know I exist, right?
And if you're listening right now, please, by all means, call us, because this is not that. I've been a small business owner that didn't deal with tax before. I know how you feel. This is not that. Get your money. So it was, when it was rolled out originally, they started realizing as PPP dried up, and then these other programs dried up, there's no more cash to put back to business owners to get us through that time. So the IRS started changing the guidance, making it more favorable every time for business owners.
The IRS did something positive? No.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I know, right? And not only that, they changed it 4 different times during 2021 alone. That the big piece of this that I want people to understand is it's not a small credit. And this might be to the IRS's downfall that they created one that was on such a large scale. But in 2021, it's up to a cap of $7,000 per employee per quarter.
Oh, wow.
Right? You're talking
so
about
that's $21,000. No, $28,000. See, that's why I hire somebody to do my numbers.
So our average for qualified business is over $200,000 in cash to them from the IRS. Cash is yours. And that is, you really qualify if you have one W-2 employee, up to, for that 2021 period, is up to 500. But we'll get into the kind of ins and outs of that. It's misleading. You can definitely have over 500 in how it's calculated, hence the fine print that no one reads, and therefore no one's taking advantage of.
Yeah. A company the size of Walmart, But, somebody who has, maybe a manufacturing business, things like that. I mean, they definitely should look into this.
Absolutely. And the one thing I will add to that is this is probably one of the most significant tax credits that's ever been and might will be, because it's all 50 states. It's irregardless of industry. So for us, is we do a lot with business interruption insurance and COVID, and we're kind of tip of the spear and who was hurt and what counties had restrictions. And so that's naturally how Andrew and I worked. Is let's go to the most hurt areas first,
Right.
hardest restrictions. As we started rolling that out, we realized everyone's qualified. Right. And I don't mean everyone, but there's no industry that has a segment that, 80% don't qualify. It's all over 50%. It's just a matter of how did you run your business?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that comes back to, the fact that by government classification, what do they say? 95% of all businesses are small businesses. And I mean, that's a pretty big cap for some people. They're making many millions, and I always love that definition, because I'm like, I don't compete with somebody who's making 50 million a year, but it does mean that, and this isn't obviously specifically to small business, but it is, it just shows that there are so many businesses that really can benefit from this.
Well, it was rolled out for small business. The intended, and this is why things sometimes get rushed in legislation. And if not, I'm very happy that this tax credit exists. So thank you to the IRS. But it was meant for small business. It really is meant for that 5, 10, 15, 20 person business. But with so many changes to the rules, you've now included groups that, technically you can have up to several thousand employees, and how it's calculated, and you still qualify because it's based on payroll, right? It's based on there's an hourly requirements to it, that just because you have, like in the restaurant industry, we always use the example is a lot of people are part-time.
Right. And it gets very confusing there.
So you can take a group that owns multiple restaurants, and, you might own 5 or 6, and you have 1,000 employees. Well, when you run the calculations, you're at 240 based on the IRS objective requirement. You qualify.
Okay.
No one knows that, and CFOs, and it's not their fault. It was a very lengthy one-time credit.
And the assumption would be that people assume, well, it only applies for full-time employees. Obviously consultants are different, because you're not W-2ing them, you're 1099ing them. So, that's a little bit different. But yeah, anybody, like you were saying, the W-2 is the qualification.
You have to be a W-2, and also you can't be a W-2'd owner, or we get them sometimes where you have a family business where your 4 members are W-2'd, but you're also all split equity owners. So you can't be, you don't count if you actually have ownership of the business.
Right.
But other than that, if you have one W-2, you can get your money on that. But yeah, the biggest thing is that if you're a CFO, or if you're somebody talking, and I learned this through my family office connections and private equity, is that they all told me they saw their requirements on 500 employees, and they passed. They didn't look at it.
Yeah, they just saw that number and went, nope.
Over, you need to talk to us or your CPA, because there's 200 different FAQs on how this thing is done that no one pays attention to, and it's never been done before.
Right.
And so when people say, oh, why did my CPA talk to me about this? It's not.
They didn't know about it.
And it changed so many times that no one grasped it, right? And it wasn't a lot of money in the beginning, and then it became a lot of money later on. So there's very few people that actually can do it correctly, get you to maximize the credit, but also know if you don't qualify, hopefully you don't claim it. And we've seen this happen: is people claim it, they get paid, and then they come to us afterwards to double check. You don't qualify.
Like, now you owe it back.
Oh yes, you're going to owe it back, and you're also going to have penalties and interest on it.
Right.
And this is a big push for us, and why we do what we do. And this is a little aside, is that I have a very large fear, and why we decided to make this our primary for the next couple of years, is that a lot of people are going to get hurt. And the reason is, like you said, is that we finally got out of the last 2 years, and everybody should be, okay. There's not a lot of programs, but the IRS is going to audit this. They're
Mhm.
paying it out. They're not
Right.
really looking at it because they don't have the manpower.
Mhm.
Merrick Garland just hired 200 attorneys to basically go over the IRS for COVID fraud.
Mm.
They're hiring 10,000 people in the IRS on a massive hiring spree on billions of dollars of budget, and they're trying to do this for audit. So in 3 years, there's a high likelihood if anybody took money out, especially for
Right.
COVID-related things,
Mhm.
but for this, they're going to be audited.
Mhm.
We give that peace of mind that if you qualify, you qualify. And
Right.
if the IRS comes,
Mhm.
call me. Here's
Yeah.
your package. I
Mhm.
would love to see it grow
Mhm.
and justify it for you.
Right. Now, is this a one-time tax credit, or is it something that is going to go forward? Does it need to be approved by Congress every year? I mean, what are the, is
So
it worth somebody going, okay, I've done it once. Ooh, this worked, so I need to pay attention and do it again. Or I didn't qualify in 2021, but maybe I will in 2022.
it's a one-time credit
Okay.
because in the infrastructure bill actually killed the fourth quarter of 2021 to claim this again. It's a quarterly tax credit. And so we look at individual quarters. So you can
Mhm.
qualify in quarter one, not
Mhm.
two, but three, right?
Mhm.
So you can qualify in this basically from quarter two of 2020 all the way through quarter
Mhm.
three of 2021. However, we encourage people to do it now because there's a misconception around two things. One is that it ended, so it's not available. No,
Right.
this is a payroll tax rate. So you have 3 years from the day
Okay.
that the 941 is filed.
Mhm.
So we technically have through 2023, kind of a little bit of 2024,
Mhm.
that you can get your money. It's there,
Mhm.
but it will end at that date.
Right.
So it won't be available past 3 years plus quarter three, 2021.
Mhm.
And the second thing, though, is the IRS is massively behind.
Mhm.
They're just understaffed.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard that. They keep telling people, please file electronically, please.
Yes, and this is not something that you can do that for.
Mhm.
And so it's 6 to 8 months that sometimes it takes to get paid on this.
Okay.
That's why we streamlined the process to
Mhm.
cut that down. And we manage it the whole time
Mhm.
so that our average is right in that 4.5, 5 month. We tell people
Mhm.
6, 7,
Mhm.
but we take that worry out from them because
Mhm.
we're the ones updating them on the
Right.
process.
But this is not, hey, we filed on Friday, we get the check on Monday.
Absolutely not. That'd be a wonderful thing, and I would love to work towards that
Wouldn't
one
we
day. But
love if the government was that efficient? Holy cow.
I'd be a lot of money back to them though to
Mhm.
budget for that. So
Mhm.
I don't want to pay more tax, but
Right.
it'd be a nice service.
Right. Now, I love that you mentioned that, if you didn't already apply and you qualified, you can still apply.
Absolutely.
So it
Uh,
wasn't you lost it.
no, and it kind of goes into it's not a widely known program. The IRS didn't really
Well,
hone
yeah,
it.
I mean, they don't want to go, hello, we have
Well, it's
money.
also it's also I mean, and to that point is
Hmm.
PPP. You might get forgiveness, but you also
Hmm.
owe a portion of it back.
Right.
This is just we owe you money,
Hmm.
and oh by the way, it's probably a lot of money.
Hmm.
And there's a finite end to it. So I have no clue what their reasons for it is, but it's something that is just flown under the radar
Hmm.
and less, there's just such a small crowd that doesn't know about this thing is that, but yeah, people can qualify for this and it doesn't take much on our end.
Hmm.
There is a lot of paperwork that goes involved. And again, that's how we streamline and we do everything
Hmm.
for everybody. But I highly encourage people because
Hmm.
the amount of times that people have told us that I
Hmm.
don't qualify,
Hmm.
right? And there is a revenue test
Hmm.
where you have to have a certain amount of decline in revenue, not profit, just revenue,
Right.
and qualify for this. But I don't qualify, I don't qualify, I don't qualify.
Hmm.
And then we come back and we run it with all the different variants that you can now qualify under. And now you have $400,000 that'll be due to you in 6 months.
That's not bad. Hmm.
No, it's a good day for people.
Hmm.
I definitely that's the joy we get on the phone when they
Hmm.
say, "Is it real?" It can't be real. It's not
Hmm.
real, and they get a check and they screenshot it and send it to us. And they go, "It's real." Of
Hmm.
course, it's
Hmm.
real.
And I always ask my guests for speaking points. And one of the ones that was sent said that only 12% of the businesses have even claimed this tax credit.
Yeah, so the NFIB is one that we watch a lot, National
Mm-hmm.
Federation of Independent Business. There's other publications too that are really watching this credit and
Mm-hmm.
who's claimed it, because it's such a powerful and
Mm-hmm.
significant credit that's going to help businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, so it was 12%. It's closer to 15 now, but it's such a, for being out for 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
15% of businesses have claimed it for 2021. And the last polling showed something like 54% have never even heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a serious gap that we have to bring this
Mm-hmm.
to the market. And again, thank you so much for letting us do that.
Right.
But there's a reason why.
Mm-hmm.
Is number one is it because it was changed so many different times, and
Mm-hmm.
no one really knew what it was, and PPP was the big winner of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But then also CPA firms and CFOs, it was such a confusing legislation that no one wanted to touch it, or they
Mm-hmm.
thought they didn't qualify. That it is just something that is not known as a resource, and we
Mm-hmm.
need to get the word out, because the majority of people are qualifying for at least something under
Mm-hmm.
this program.
Right. And you also mentioned that, maybe you applied and you were declined, but things
Mhm.
keep changing. So keep checking.
Too many people have they looked at it in March of 2021, or they looked at it at the end of December 2020, and they said, oh, we didn't qualify. Well, there's 3 more guidances after that
Mm-hmm.
changed every time. I mean, to the point now where you could have taken PPP and it's not even equated in the eligibility portions
Mm-hmm.
now per the last guidance for your revenue test.
Mm-hmm.
So if you thought you didn't qualify in March, run it again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's have somebody who specializes in this,
Mm-hmm.
not somebody who has like a little general knowledge, because
Right.
they're going to maximize it for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Right. Well, and like we were saying, many times you think, oh, I didn't qualify. But yeah, it's and you do have to know how to go back in and check correctly, and because I'm assuming it's not just that they go, oh, looky, yes, you do qualify. There's probably a little bit of procedure to go, oh, okay, now I do qualify. Now what?
Yeah. So for us, we try to take a very complex tax credit
Mm-hmm.
that has multiple different arms to it,
Mm-hmm.
and we turn it into something that is the lowest touch system for a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Go run your business.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't need you to know all of the 9,000 different ways until you qualify, and I tell
Right.
you which way you qualified.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, it's what scares people off.
Mm-hmm.
Payroll companies say that they help out with this, but they're not determining your eligibility. And we warn people against that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
they don't even get that information really.
No, and we work with a lot of the payroll companies, and we
Mm-hmm.
appreciate them and how they work with us. It's just not in their purview to
Right.
do. And so if they're
Mm-hmm.
going to file your 941s,
Mm-hmm.
you can give them your revenue numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and you could technically qualify on that, on the revenue in a case, but you're clicking a button that says you've determined your eligibility,
Mm-hmm.
and an indemnification against it, and then they run it. Well, if you own multiple businesses, that now is called an aggregate employer technically, and you now have 5 businesses that consider one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't qualify now.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and now you're on your own. But yeah, for this, we take that whole process,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a conversation for 15 minutes with us to understand your business, and then we do the document collection for you, minus the P&Ls, and we work with the payroll companies, and we work with your bookkeepers, and if you use QuickBooks, so that literally it's pretty much a process that in less than 5 business days,
Cool.
you had a 15-minute conversation, and now you can see if you claimed it.
Right. And we mentioned that you have partnered with C-Suite Network on this. And so they've actually created a really simple little initial thing to go through, just to even see if it's worth kind of having that conversation. And that's, their website is C-Suite ERC tax credit.com. I actually had to make it even bigger so that I could get all the right E's in there. But yeah, so it's C-Suite ERC tax credit.com. And there's a little box on there that says calculate your potential ERTC tax credit in less than a minute. And then you just start going through the process.
Yeah, I mean, it was important for us for people to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can click, the whole yes, no, and get through 10 questions, and then we call you.
Right.
But
it's about a 60-second process, folks.
Oh yeah.
That's the
reason on
important
that
thing is this is
calculator
not, giving away your life story.
Oh, yes. And because we think first of who our clients are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the pizza shop owner, it's the plumber, it's, the small recruiting firms. You had so many things going on during the day as a person who's run those firms before. One, tax, I don't want to hear about it. I'm bored.
Mm-hmm.
Two, IRS, I don't want to deal with it because I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how they're going to get me. And then three, I don't have the time to fill this thing
Mm-hmm.
out.
Right.
So what we did was yes, no, show you the value of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do qualify or it is a large amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
call us. Right?
Right.
But if not, no worries.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take into effect
Mm-hmm.
certain programs that, we have to net out against that. But
Mm-hmm.
we want people to see this is
Mm-hmm.
possibly six figures. The largest
Right.
we've seen for people is
Mm-hmm.
$4.5 million for one specific quarter for a business.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not small.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that $5,000 not worth my time,
Mm-hmm.
even though $5,000 would be worth most
Yeah.
people's times.
Yeah. Well, and the important thing is it takes one W-2. One W-2, folks. If if you issue one W-2, it's worth at least, exploring this.
Absolutely. And it's let somebody do it who understands how you qualify.
Right.
And I'll say it so many times because there's so many different ways that this leads down that you might assume you don't. And then we find out you had equity or your business partner has equity in another business or you categorize somebody and industries are different that in such a small amount of time, less than 5 business days, you will have peace of mind knowing you didn't leave money on the table, but if you did, it was done correctly.
Right.
That is our goal for this whole thing.
I mean, maybe you don't qualify, but you tried.
That's a good thing. So we tell people all the time, if you don't qualify, that means you did well during the pandemic. We are so happy that for some reason you were resilient enough or you found a different niche. And we find these stories that it motivates me as a business owner. It makes me happy to see, American ingenuity and everything else because, especially when states that had certain restrictions, they had to be creative. They had to come up with new product lines. We had one in Florida where, a certain bakery, was about to go out of business. And so they went door to door to universities and schools trying to get a contract, ends up getting a contract with Florida State University, and they're open for 2 years and did better than ever. I'm so happy that you don't qualify.
I know. Yeah, because you were a survivor. You did that pivot word.
Yes.
Yeah, I never want to hear that word again, right? But yeah, I mean, if you don't qualify, it's because you did good. And so that's important. Well, Doug, one of the things that you talked about when you were talking about how you got to where you are today is you have each time you've taken a step in your career, you're building on things. You took this knowledge and now you're doing this, and you started this portion of your business in the pandemic. What the heck were you thinking? And what? Yeah.
Ask my wife; she would not be happy about that. She's happy where it ended up, but I'm a risk taker. That's what she loves about me. No,
and she knew it before she married you, I'm sure. So.
Oh yes, my fault. So it's not necessarily something that is the smartest thing to do. It just goes back to our core beliefs. And Andrew and I are very aligned. That's why we do very well together is that we represent those who are not able to represent themselves. It's the true underdogs because we feel so privileged in our life to be where we are. And so we've seen the other side of finance. We've seen the other side of litigation where it's money, it's greed, it's all of these things. And it's just so against who we are that we saw COVID, we saw how it was hurting small businesses. And literally I asked Andrew, well, what do we do? We have to do something. I don't know if it's small, I don't know if it's big, but we have the ability with the resources we have. What do we do? And so Andrew actually made a name for himself during the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And so he was one of the main people who did the financial modeling for settlements and things like that. And there was a claims business that he was involved in under a certain law firm. And most of our team had been involved in that as well as other things, Hurricane Harvey and Maria, but they have that background. And so I looked at Andrew, like him and I always do when we pick up certain service lines. And I said, I joke all the time that he is the guy that looks at a black hole and sees numbers. And I appreciate him for it. And I am the complete opposite, the builder. So we looked at a whiteboard and I said, hey, I need you to walk through the mechanics of that event and how that would work and how we would help people. Right. Now I understand the playing field. And then I go into my hole for 3 weeks to 2 months, 3 months,
Build it.
and I design all the infrastructure around it and the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that we came up with originally was we did business interruption claims.
Okay.
And so, there was such a need for businesses that were hurt because COVID, the pandemic, was such an unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew's an attorney, Andrew himself, as well as we have co-counsels in each state that look at these things, and then they partner with them. But we run the financials and the claim side on Archetype.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just started aggregating all of these out because so many business owners didn't know where to go. And no local attorneys were really taking this on.
It was such an unknown, and they were struggling too. I mean, that's the other thing.
And to this day, it's something that's evolving, and we think that it's going to go in the right direction in a couple of years. But it's a state by state, jurisdiction by jurisdiction thing, and we're in the tip of the spear of it. So we designed that business. And one thing about my background, like I had said in the beginning, was I'm a systems person.
Mm-hmm.
So E-Myth, the book,
shaped
my life greatly. Ray Dalio's books on principles and how meritocracy, autonomy, and then combine that with automation and technology. That is how I've always designed my businesses. And so it's the least overhead cost possible for the highest quality, most effective business. And the reason that we did that was, and we found that these business lines worked, was I've been a part of too many businesses during downtimes that their fixed costs sank them.
Right.
And they wouldn't make the hard decisions because it was friends, it was family, and I don't want to let these people go. And it's they didn't understand the greater good, and so they suffered, right? And I would never allow ourselves to do that. And then everything, and this is going to lead into the ERC, is that everything that Andrew and I do has to piggyback off of the foundation and the infrastructure that we've already built. Otherwise, we won't do it. So the systems and the CRM that we use, the automations and the platforms that we use, all would be integrated with a new service line, or we're not going to rebuild it.
Okay.
And we chose those very specifically, things like Asana and project management tools that we use, because all of our people are remote. Andrew and I are based in Houston. We have one other in Houston, but they're also in Miami. They're in California. There's so many different places. Because from my work as a recruiter, I never wanted to be hurt by a talent pool that was only in my city. So that's how we built our business interruptions claims, which we still do today. But then when this tax credit came out, just like anybody listening to this that says there's no way, we had a client who came to us and they said, hey, I want you to double check this.
Yeah, we've heard about this thing.
And I don't think I did it right. And he's a great friend of ours and I love him to death. And he knows that, Andrew's background specifically, and, we had multiple people with masters in accounting on our team, so we're definitely qualified. But Andrew is that esoteric asset. I only do the strangest tax credits because I enjoy them kind of person. So Andrew and I sat down and we looked at it, and sure enough, $650,000 later for one venue, and we ran it 50 times and kept looking at each other. There's no way, and if it is, it was not intended to be this.
Right.
We said, okay, this has legs. And people need this because this business was hurting. They were shut down. They were an event place for weddings, and they were absolutely destroyed. And that is now the difference in cutting half their staff. So that was our give to our clients. Basically was, I now have to bring this to everyone because I don't know when we're going to settle on business interruption claims. I don't know when the next newest stimulus thing is going to come out, but this is real, this is now, and this is not limiting. So we have to do that. So we already had the clients, we had a couple hundred clients that we could go to directly because it was similar. And then we started realizing everyone is qualifying regardless of industry. Everyone has a story that there's something there, and they have a friend and they have a nephew and they have people that own businesses and they need this thing. So that's how we just said, all right, this is it. This is what we're going to do for the next 2-3 years. And we're going to devote all of our resources to it to make sure that everybody gets what they're entitled to.
Right. And I think one of the things that we have definitely seen through this pandemic is everything is evolving. We had the PPEs and now we have this. And, things are going to continue to evolve at all levels as people try and negotiate this. I think one of the biggest things is obviously going to be the whole remote work from home. I have a friend who was in commercial realty. He said, nah. I mean, it is definitely the one of the areas you don't want to be in, because so many places have said, nah, we don't need that space anymore, whether they were leasing or are now saying, we want to sell. And so that could be an area where, and it's interesting down here in Georgia. One of the things that people were talking about was, can we turn some of those spaces into homeless housing? Things like that. And so I think we're going to see, with all of this, I mean, we're seeing all of these new ideas that are being generated off of something that, really, we all know was something pretty horrific.
Yeah, and I love how you say that, because the ethos of who I am as an individual is, my passion in life is entrepreneurship. Because it doesn't matter if you make 50,000 or 50 million. It's the freedom that you get to dictate your life, how you live it, and you get to have purpose, which is the biggest thing, is that you're working towards a goal that you created with your own hands. Right? And so I challenge people, because of the situation, is be creative. There's so many different avenues you can go down currently, because there's so many needs in the market that are unaddressed or have gone by the wayside or struggling, that you can now enter into, because the barriers are down. Right. But more importantly, I love the creativity of homeless houses for like downtown areas, because I would love to see that in Houston. Right. But for us, it's, you don't know what you are capable of until you kind of understand the playing field. I joke with Andrew all the time, is I'm not going to start to play chess until I understand the rules, and then I'll make a move. Right. So
right. Yeah. You're not going to go, okay, I'm taking this move, I don't know why, I'm just going to make this move.
If someone's starting out, I mean, you can go on Upwork, right, and make money. You can go on any of these other places, but then you start figuring out that you can outsource things, right? I don't have to, like, I have a CISO who was originally a virtual CISO, because for data security, and he's taught me so much. He's fantastic. He's not only a good person, he's a culture fit for us. He's taught me so much. You're on, right? Like, I built that relationship. It's almost like I'm almost dating my senior level management before I have to commit to it, because all of them came in on kind of a part-time basis until we said, hey, I like what you do. Oh, I like what you do. Yeah, we should now all make this work, rather than just jumping into an organization saying, hey, I'll give it 90 days. Right. And then the other part about it, and I'm sure Atlanta is very much the same, but I am a person that needs to be in the office. That is, I'm a family man is my priority. I have a 4-year-old. I have a 2-year-old who's crazy, and I love it. And I'm a very devoted husband. So when I walk in that door, work is done. I need that separate space. And so how do I create the structure, though? Because I think anybody, and I recently heard a podcast done by the CEO of Apollo, that they were talking about, they're all back in full time because he struggled with the remote environment and management. I also struggle with that from a standpoint of focus. And so I allow our employees to have, basically co-working spaces where wherever they're at, because there's so many examples now of Industrious and several others where you're in multiple cities.
Right.
You have a membership to where now, oh, I'm in Utah. Oh, I can go, I'm in Salt Lake. I can go to that location. Oh, now I'm back in Miami. I can go here. You have that flexibility, but you also now gain back the structure of, if your home life is too chaotic, or like me, kids, I love them to death, but we all know the Zoom calls and they're knocking on the door, and I love you, but at the same time, not this one.
Yeah, so I like the people that have told their kids, unless you're bleeding, you don't interrupt me.
Yeah, and Andrew and I are very much like, Andrew will always have his dog on, and so we're so fluid and flexible about all of that. But
and we've all gotten used to that, right? We finally figured out it's going to happen.
Oh yeah. But there's definitely some where you need your focus. It's a very important one, and you want to give respect to those clients, where it's a very serious conversation. And with us, and the stuff that Andrew does in litigation, I mean, some of them are very private conversations.
Right.
You need that. At least I have the option, right? And I'm sure your guests have talked about this, but I mean, claustrophobia for me mentally was a big thing during COVID. I had to get out and go to a different space to
Right.
be the most efficient I could,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a creative person. So
Mm-hmm.
it's done very well for us, and I encourage people to look at those options because they're not
Mm-hmm.
as expensive as people think.
Right. Well, and I think we really are going to see a combination, because for many people, the ability to have, say, a flexible schedule working from home worked really well. For them, doing the 9 to 5, they might actually be their most creative at 11 o'clock at night. And so I think, some of those things were worked through, especially once kids got back into school. I think that, that whole dynamic of everybody was home, I'm surprised anybody survived. That was just something that, and blessings to everybody who did survive, because it was really chaotic. But I've home officed for 20 years. So, I'm used to being home alone. I miss the networking events, and I don't network in person. I'm still kind of holding off on some of those things. So I miss the social, and that, I think, is one of the things that employers have really discovered, is that social aspect is one of the most important things. You're getting coffee together, and even if you're just talking about, the hockey game that was on last night, somewhere in there you might actually talk a little business,
Hmm.
and so that's I think that is one of the things that, especially the companies that said 100% remote, where, I think they're discovering that they're missing those little human touch points.
Yeah, and it's not everybody, but as you know, as the CEO of our companies, and somebody who's been in management for what 17 years,
Hmm.
um, that's a great theory.
Hmm.
But in my opinion, in all honesty, to have the face-to-face interaction with those who are struggling or those who are training for the first six
Right.
months, I need to
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
that face-to-face interaction with them,
Hmm.
so they know that I'm committed, but
Hmm.
also I'm there to see, okay, you're getting it,
Hmm.
but you're not really telling me I'm going to
Right.
engage even more, right?
Hmm.
I think we miss that, and like you said, the side conversations, right?
Hmm.
So I am a person who's done way too many trade shows,
Hmm.
um, in my life, and I like them. I don't necessarily like doing every one that comes to me now.
Hmm.
But what I realized I missed was the side conversations,
Hmm.
right? And,
Right.
we're all going out to lunch or there's a break,
Hmm.
and I just want to get to know your story. And then it
Hmm.
turns out too that's a long
Hmm.
term, lifelong, business partner of mine, because we
Right.
just had a conversation
Hmm.
about hockey or
Hmm.
baseball, or
Hmm.
as how you did during COVID. And
Hmm.
those are the things that I think I just miss, is the human
Hmm.
touch of,
Hmm.
yeah, we all run businesses, but how are you doing? How did you
Right.
get through all of it?
Right.
I
Yeah.
love
Hmm. Yeah. I think probably all the micromanagers of the world, their heads went, I mean, because, I can't imagine if you were a micromanager and all of a sudden you had nobody to micromanage.
that.
And we saw the disastrous things with people saying, putting the programs on people's computers that counted their keystrokes. And so then, okay, they're putting their 2-year-old there, and
I'm guilty of tricking that system years ago.
oh
So yeah,
yeah,
I
I
get.
mean, there's lots of ways that you can get around those things, and it's all you have to do is Google it, so it's not a complicated thing. And I had somebody who was talking to me about that, and he said, I don't trust my employees to get their work done, and I said, if you don't trust them there, do you trust them in the office? And I said, because if it's that you don't trust them, then you shouldn't have them working for you. Period.
Absolutely.
And so it was, and he'd actually never thought about that. And he realized, he said, you know what, there are some folks that do need to go. He said, because they needed, even in the office, it was, are you going to get your work done? Are you going to get your work done? Is it right? All of those various things. But he'd kept them around for whatever reason. And I said, it's really hard right now to let people go. I mean, just the guilt trip alone. But I said, if you don't trust them to work anywhere, then you shouldn't have them employed.
Yeah, and I'm very, very happy you brought that up, because it's again, I say ethos a lot, but it's our culture,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's not easy to manage. I'll be the first one
Right.
to say that.
Mhm.
So we are a true meritocracy.
Mhm.
That is how our culture is defined. We
Mhm.
are a meritocracy. We are autonomous, but we
Mhm.
take personal responsibility.
Mhm.
So other than myself and really the forward-facing people to the public are
Mhm.
on the normal,
Mhm.
for me, 6 to 6 or whatever it is, but the normal 8 to 5.
Mhm.
Like Andrew, for instance, and our operations team and some of our marketing teams, they don't have set hours.
Right.
They literally will come in from 9 to 2, go home and work from 6 to 11.
Right.
Right. And we encourage that because they've been the most efficient
Right.
possible, because they have the
Well,
freedom.
and when you're dealing with people in all different time zones, I mean, that's the other thing that gets that added complication, especially if you're dealing internationally.
Yeah, we want to foster, like I said, we have the luxury now that we can pull from any talent pool in the US. And that's really where our markets are, but with that is, we understand the current market, right? We understand that you have to offer something more than just money, right? And it's going to be a weighing of the two. But the biggest thing is that, I want to provide, and Andrew wants to provide, people who work with us something that not only they're proud of, but they wake up in the morning, they want to work towards, because they feel like they're involved, but they understand that the first thing, go be a family, go be that person that's there for your kids, go to a baseball game, go do all those things, because you know what? I know I'm going to get it back tenfold. Right. And never feel judgment or guilt that you did that. And that's why we preach it every week on any of our meetings is, hey, what do you got going on personally? Awesome. Fantastic. Go to that event. Go do that. I'll take this work on for you. You take that on for me. Because why else do it? It's not for the money. I'm not, we're all not going to go to our graves and say, oh, yeah, I still have all of this money and it's going to come with me. It's just live a good life and do the right thing. That is really what we do.
Right. And we mentioned that you and I are both part of C-Suite Network, and I'm going to, get a little commercially here for C-Suite Network, because obviously we think that it's a good organization, but you said something a little bit ago, and I want to come back to it. And that's the premise of the give. And that is something definitely that C-Suite always does. And so tell us a little bit more about the give.
Yeah. So I cannot say enough about C-Suite. They've been impressive from day one, and any CEO or executive that has been lured, like I have, to groups that are like this and it gets a little boring, this is not that. This is truly an environment for us all to grow, and for us to basically bring value to each other, because it's literally just us, right? We run our organizations. But yeah, the give, it's big for C-Suite, it's big for us, is that give back and don't expect anything in return, right? Karma is a wonderful thing, but just as a good person, if, for instance, we do a lot with entrepreneurs, and now we're going to do even more with C-Suite, is that I want to tell you my entire story. I want to give you resources that I never had, because no one told me the truth of what it's like to be an entrepreneur. They were only telling me the good things. I want to steer people in a direction that gives them value and purpose in their life and to be successful. And that is what this group is. We do this every single time we meet. We do this every single week when we're on Zoom. That ultimately it is, what can I help you with? What can you help me with? I'm struggling with this in my organization. I have to be that rock. But ultimately, I can now go to my peers and say, I'm dealing with this problem. And they come back and say, oh, this is how I dealt with it. Call this person. Right. It's definitely been the most amazing environment that I've ever been in as a professional.
Right. And years ago, I discovered Bob Berg and his Go-Giver concept. And I've met Bob, and I've had him on the program several times. I mean, you talk about one of the absolute most wonderful, delightful people in the world. I mean, he is just the epitome of graciousness. And I asked him one time, I said, okay, about giving and giving and giving. And he said, wait. He said, it is important to give, but it's also important to not get taken advantage of. Yes. And I think that's sometimes where people get caught up, is they think I'm giving away, what we used to say, giving away the farm. No, you're helping where you can, but as Bob said, not being taken advantage of. But also, as you said earlier, not expecting something in return. And I think that's the key, is to give from the heart, to give from your soul. And, maybe the next time you need something, somebody will be there for you.
I know, because I've experienced, just like any other entrepreneur, not even entrepreneurs, just people in life, is that you come into interactions or you meet people, right? And at the time, you don't necessarily perceive value. It might be forced conversation, but just be a good person, right? Be a memorable, positive person. Don't be negative. Because don't waste your life doing that. Right. And then 5 years later, you meet that person, and now all of a sudden there's a business deal. There's, they were a physician I didn't know, and now they're treating my son or my daughter, right? if you waste time in your life being negative and you waste time being a skeptic,
Mhm.
I would encourage you to find a better group.
Mhm.
And I would encourage you to keep learning
Mhm.
and putting yourself around those who are positive and encourage you, because when you do that, all of a sudden you realize there is literally unlimited potential, and
Right.
there are similar people like you
Mhm.
that really just want to give you everything that they have, and don't expect anything in
Mhm.
return. So it has been, I'm very, very lucky to have found this group,
Mhm.
and I'm very, very committed to growing them and getting them out
Mhm.
to as many people as possible.
Right. Yeah, and it is for any level of, it is
Mhm.
called C-suite network. I am a CEO. I'm here in my spare bedroom. And so it's not the billion-dollar industries. Yes, there are some big movers and shakers that are part of it, but it is for anybody that is, wants to get ahead in business the right way.
Yeah, and again, that's the best point of this entire hour is
Mhm.
is like I said earlier, is my biggest give as a mentor, and what I pursue to help other people is,
Mhm.
to not have to do what I did, right? The
Mhm.
hard route.
Right. Mhm.
Is that this is what this was. I thought C-suite always was the Walmarts of the world, the
Mhm.
private equities, like this small
Mhm.
group. No, it's really more of the entrepreneurs who are
Mhm.
starting or have a small company.
Right.
And then we have sprinkled in several of those who've done it before,
Mhm.
or have exited multiple companies and failed twice and did it right on the third time. And that's really what it's there for, is like, oh, hey, you didn't know that you could, like for me, I'm a big person on automation and
Mhm.
tech stuff to make things efficient. Oh, you don't have to hire 9 people for that. This
Mhm.
software system does that. You can
Right.
hire one good person and
Mhm.
treat them fantastic,
Mhm.
right? That's the difference between them succeeding and failing,
Mhm.
because they've never done that kind of a scale before, and they realize now, oh, there's other resources.
Mhm.
That's what this group is. It's just to
Right.
share ideas and resources to make everybody as
Right.
successful as possible.
Right. And they did pivot the right way. All of their online opportunities are absolutely fantastic. And you don't always have to be a member of C-Suite Network
Mhm.
to take advantage. And so, I encourage folks to check that out. Well, speaking of checking things out, oh my gosh, we are almost at the top of the hour. And so, tell us a little bit more about the services that you provide and how people can reach out to you.
Yeah, so really we're focused on the employee retention tax credit.
Hmm.
And in short, we've talked a little bit about it, but really, if you haven't looked at it, I encourage you to go talk to us or your CPAs. We work
Hmm.
with them. Go to our site, which is the C-Suite, erctaxcredit.com,
Hmm.
C-suite. And you can look at how much the credit could apply to you. But also, if you want to go at it on your own, I mean, it really is an informational site with IRS guidance. I mean, we encourage people. I don't care how you do it.
Hmm.
Just take advantage of the money
Hmm.
if you actually qualify for it.
Right.
But we are 100% risk-free, we say, but we will never charge anything unless there's actually a credit, and we
Hmm.
want to make sure that people have this. And so
Right.
we will do everything for you
Hmm.
until the day that you get that check. It's
Hmm.
exactly what we said, because we only do things the right way, and we would
Hmm.
never want anything that we didn't earn. So,
Hmm.
but outside of that, the business interruption and litigation finance firms, it's a smaller piece, but if you are an attorney that is looking for capital for your firm to grow, feel free to contact us at
Hmm.
archetypecp.com,
Hmm.
and also archetypeadvisory.com for business interruption claims.
I love it. And how do people connect with you?
LinkedIn is the best way. You are a
Okay.
big proponent of LinkedIn, and I
Hmm.
appreciate it. It's where I live and breathe. So on LinkedIn, you can find me. So there's Archetype Consulting Group is our tag name,
Hmm.
and then you can find me at, and I can send out a link, but it's LinkedIn, and it's Doug M is the end
Hmm.
for the URL. So
Hmm.
feel free. I am open. Connect with me. Ask me any questions. I am an open book, and I would love the conversation.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. And it's funny because we were all thinking, oh, we're talking about taxes. This has been a great conversation. Because as you said, we want anybody who qualifies to get their money. I mean, that's the important thing. And yes, there's paperwork involved. This isn't, pennies from heaven. This, there's a little bit of work to it. And so I do encourage people to go to, I'm going to have to look it up again to get this right, csuiteerctaxcredit.com. And that'll at least start the process. And so please go there. It has been a great conversation. And Doug, I think, in maybe another year, we should chat again because there will be a whole bunch of new stuff to talk about, right?
Always, and for us. we're focused on this, but for all of our clients, any tax credit or stimulus that comes out for any given amount of time, we monitor that for our clients. So if in a year something comes out, I'll be the one to proactively alert you. You don't have to read the fine print or wait for the news to come out. So feel free to call us, ask us about anything. We're there really as a resource and to serve our clients.
Perfect. I love it. Well, do you have any final thoughts for everybody?
Yes, non-tax related.
Perfect.
My biggest encouragement to anybody who's listening to this or anybody who stumbles upon it is that the environment has changed drastically, and we're a perfect example of that. Is we do things for the right reasons. We help those who are, don't have the ability to help themselves. But if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, now is the best time to do it. And I know it's scary out of COVID, but there is more resources than you know. So go find a mentor like I did, and I was lucky enough to have, and reach your potential versus just trying to live your life for retirement. I strongly encourage people to do that.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, Doug, I can't wait until we talk again because this really has been so much fun and such great information. And until then, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having a fabulous conversation with Doug Mayer, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.